Okay, so welcome everyone to this evening's webinar. We're looking at the STP and the Practice Manager, Office Practice Manager, and seeing how we can make them work together and scheduling your STP. My name is Ali Cochran. I hope you can all hear me all right. Just a few little housekeeping things to begin with. You have your GoToWebinar control panel. And there you'll find an area where you can pop in questions, and Tiana will try to attempt to answer most of those, or myself, as we go along. Sometimes there may be a time where we might stop and wait till the end of a sort of subject matter before we answer them, so please be patient with us. If you can just let me know that you can all see the screen in front of you. You should be seeing a screen there. If you could just raise your hand and let me know that you can see the screen, okay? Fantastic, thank you so much. So the screen you're looking at right now is the screen you get when you go into the My Practice area in your GovReports. So when you log into your GovReports, instead of being up here in the bird's eye view showing you the actual lodgement area, the My Practice area and clicking on jobs will bring this screen up to you. Now, it's broken down into a couple of areas, and I'll go through that in a moment and just take you through different parts of it. So the practice is free with your subscription there. I'm correct, I hope there, Tiana. And it is a bonus to use because it allows you to schedule and plan your work, not only for yourself but for your team as well. And there are several things within here, such as integrations with Google Calendar and notifications that help you in running your practice. So the My Practice area, if you are, I'll just show you, if you are here in your GovReports to begin with, when you first open it up, you'll see this area here, My Practice. That's a question there. And then I've just clicked onto Jobs to bring up my jobs at the moment onto the screen. Clicked onto one of them there. Okay, so free with your subscription, as I mentioned. Broken down into a couple of areas. So it's broken down into the schedule jobs, my tasks, and templates. So if we take a look at the schedule jobs, these are jobs that have already been set up and are running on a schedule. The my tasks, these are the tasks that are already set up within existing jobs, and we're going to go into more detail in this. I'm just doing a brief overview first. And then the templates are broken down into 4 areas. So you have a default task template, and that you have a number there that come as a default with GovReports, which you can use, or you can use as a basis for the development of your own templates. Then you have also the custom task templates, and once you have actually taken an existing template or created a template from scratch, that will be found in your custom task templates. So I'm going to take you through screenshots of how we create a new task template. So to do this, we go to create a task template either by cloning an existing template or creating a new one. Either way, once you've got it, it's going to appear in that custom template area. So you go to the default task template menu, and I'm just going to flick back very quickly into GovReports to show you where that is. So in here, you go into your, that's my tasks, Sally, into my templates, And if I go into my default task template, for example, you'll see along the top here, I have my default task template, my custom, my job, and my recurring templates. So here, if I want to create a new one, I can do that, but I can also clone an existing one. If I go to my custom task template, I can create my new one. So if I'm in here, I can clone. If I'm in custom, I can create from new. So if I go to my custom task template, I can create that new one. Now we've done a webinar on this side of it before. We're going to focus a lot more here tonight on the STP, but I'm going to take you through briefly how we do this just as a refresher, and I'm going to use the screenshots to do that. So in here, if we go into the default task template and click on clone, then it brings across all the tasks you've already set up in the default template, but with a different template name. And then once you've saved that, it now appears in your custom task place area, and you can then go in and edit it and modify it to suit you. If, however, you choose to create a new one, so this is a cloned one, if we go to create a new one, we simply go into the custom task template area, we click new, and we give the template a name. We then go through and create specific tasks, and within our tasks we can add in the checklists. So when we're doing this from a single touch payrolls perspective, we can set up the processes we want around payroll and include the next steps that we need for single touch, and I'll go into a template that I've created to show you shortly. So once you've gone through, so it may be here, approve the timesheets, create your pay run, etc., you then save your template. Or if you need to go back and you've made a mistake or you've forgotten something or you want to amend it, you can also go back and edit that existing custom task template. And when you click edit, it will take you back in and you can make your changes. We also have our job templates. So once you've created the tasks that you want to use, because they're your tasks and your checklists, you can create your jobs. And it allows you to create either single job templates or you can have recurring job templates. So flicking back quickly into our GovReports, what we dealt with before here was the cloning. We talked about creating new templates here, task templates, just to show you how it comes up and how you complete it in. When we're dealing now with our job templates, you'll see along the top we have a similar thing. We have the same sort of thing as we have our templates here under the job template, and they're created here. I've got payroll processing. We also have recurring job templates, which is what's going to be really specifically applicable, especially for STP, as wages are recurring on a regular basis, and the single touch payroll lodgement will need to be done on that same basis. So when you want to create a new job template, you simply click into the templates area along on the navigation over here on the left, select templates and go into the job template and click on new, and that will start you from scratch in a similar way that you saw the tasks. Now the difference with that, and I'll show you as we go through our recurring job template, is how we then bring our tasks into our job template. With our recurring job template, we can also click on new and start it, and I'm just going to go back to our screenshots to show you how we can go through and create a recurring job template. So up here we give it a name, we put in the frequency at which we want it to be. We can also choose to bill from in here, so it can create our invoices. We can set up the duration, the time from start to when you want it to finish, the priority, You can assign it here, and apologies for my cat in the background because I have locked her out, but she's deaf and she makes a bit of noise because she can't hear herself, but we can. So in here, when you're done, you go to the next screen, and in here, now you choose the custom task that you'd set up already. So that's why it's important to get the tasks done first. So you can choose to copy an existing task template that you've got, or you can add a task and create it from there. I find it much easier to create the tasks first. Think of all the things you need to do, think of all the checklists you want to have in them, and create that first before you set up the templates. The other thing you need to keep in mind is you cannot convert a job template into a recurring job template. You need to be mindful of whether the template you're setting up is going to be recurring in the first place. And because we're talking in relation to single touch payroll, of course it's of a payroll nature, it will be recurring. So you'll want to use the recurring job template. So once you've copied that, you can then edit and add further tasks to make it even more specific if you'd like. And once you've completed, you click on Save. The next stage is you've created a payroll template now. So for example, this one's a BAS one showing, but you could have created a payroll one. Now what you're going to do is think about when you're setting up your template and your tasks, how many clients that could apply to. Because you can create the one template, but the jobs you're doing might apply to multiple clients. So if you're doing an MYOB payroll or a Xero payroll or a QuickBooks Online payroll, they're all slightly different with their little checks and balances and things you have to do and stages you go through. So you may want to set up different tasks for those ones, and then you can create a recurring job template for each and attach your QuickBooks clients to the QuickBooks task one, or your MYOB clients to the MYOB task one, so you can see how you can utilize that side of it. So the next stage is, of course, is attaching our clients, and we do that going to the next screen and clicking on Attach to Clients. You then can go through and check the relevant clients you want to attach the job to, and once you've done that, the jobs will then appear in that window, that scheduled window. So if I go back into our GovReports and I go back here to My Jobs, at the moment what you're seeing are all the jobs that are currently available here in all stages. In the drop-down box here, you can also choose whether you only want to have a look at the open ones, and it will only display the open ones for you, etc. So you can filter in here what you want to do. You can even filter by client. So you can see now, once you've created that job template, it will appear in this list here. And as you complete it, because it is recurring, when you do set up a recurring job template, it will, I'm just going to have a look and see if I've got it here. It will set it up normally, and it will tell you when it's scheduled and everything like that. But when you set up the original job template in here, you'll see here about the future occurrence count. When you create one job, it will create an additional one. Or if you had that as 0, it would create one job, the initial job. And then once you've completed that job, it will then create the next one when it's due, and it'll fall into your schedule here. So in your schedule here, you can sort it by schedule date, start date, or you could sort it by the deadline. Once it reaches the deadline and it's over the deadline, you'll see that the date will be highlighted in red rather than in black. So it highlights very clearly to you that something is done. Now sometimes you may need to make a change to your scheduled job. So you'll go into the scheduled jobs here. So once you've created your jobs, they will appear in this scheduled job list. And so it allows you then to either make some changes. So if you wanted to edit the dates, or you can open it, you can go in here and edit the date and say, no, the deadline date isn't this date. It really should have been another date. And you can make changes here to the settings so that it's all good. And if you need to get rid of something that you've got scheduled because it's no longer applicable, you can also delete those jobs from the schedule. So let's take a look at the STP process in GovReports and how it's going to work. So I'll just move past this because we've talked about this. So the agent will log in normally, select a client, select a payroll event form if they're doing it manually, select the entry type, review and verify the details, send it for digital authorization, lodge it once it's come back as authorized, and get a confirmation with the lodgement receipt. That's a process if you're doing it manually. Obviously, if you're doing it in the software, it's going to be a little different, but this is the process. You may also have those clients that are smaller clients that need manually be doing it. Just get rid of that screen. So when you do it, you log into your GovReports as normal. You log into your GovReports as you would normally log in. Yeah, we're talking here from an agent's perspective. And you're going to select your clients on the left-hand side of the screen. Then on the right-hand side, you'll have the list of your relevant clients and you'll choose the relevant client. On the top of the screen, there is the Forms area. And in here, you will select the STP Payroll Event. And it's going to take you through these 5 steps. It's going to take you through the detailed pay run screen. It's going to require full completion the very first time. And remember, this is looking at it from a manual perspective. The second time, the previous information will be there and it'll be able to be reviewed. So the detailed pay is filled with client details. The information will be adjusted each run and it'll list all of the employees, and there'll be a declaration which you then save and then, once approved, lodge. So gone too far. So in a normal pay run, you'll have the from and to date. You'll have the date of the payment. And it's really important to remember that the STP reports are supposed to be lodged on the same day or before the date that they're physically paid. The total gross payments is all the total for all the employees in the pay run, and the total PAYG obviously is the total PAYG withheld from their wages. Then we have payroll events, and this is listing the individual employees who are paid in this specific pay period. And you enter these details through manual entry for the first time. The second time, you would use the rollover option. Alternatively, if you have software that allows you to import the files, you can import the files. You add in the employee's year-to-date values for each employee. Remember, this is the year-to-date values. And so you can see a copy of the screen here of what you're going to have to do the very first time. And this is going to suit those micro businesses that may not have a payroll system and or are using a system that is not electronically compatible. It might be using very old versions of certain software, etc., and they don't want to change. They're reluctant to change, even though it's more cost effective for them to do so. But this is a more cost beneficial for those micros who might not be able to afford that sort of situation. So in here you complete all the individual fields that it asks you. You can see the period that the pay date is, and you can see the year-to-date numbers that you have to complete. Once again, just this is important, obviously. We're talking about year-to-date. Just reiterating that point. So you tick each applicable section, you have your gross payments, etc., and you move through. The super guarantee is once again is important to be reported each pay run, and you can also have the risk reported each time. Allowances will need to be mapped to the specific allowances as required under the STP. So if you've got motor vehicle allowances, they need to be mapped to those, laundry allowances, etc., the 5 different types of allowances. And the same with any deductions. And if you have lump sums, you may need to classify whether they are due to redundancy and use the additional coding that is required there. Once you're completed, you click Save. You'll find that your saved reports will be in a draft area for you to review. And once you can do that, you can validate and send for signature, save it as a draft. When it's signed, you will then lodge. I don't know why that's come up on my screen. And you can see here the information. Once lodged, you've obviously have the email client receipt, which you can forward to your client, and then you have the similar process, but using the rollover, it will now bring in the employee information and you'll complete the next pay run that way. At the end of the year, you will have your other things to take into consideration, like your risk and your reportable fringe benefits. And then there's a final event indicator that will need to be ticked and tells the ATO that the data is now complete for that payroll year, for that financial year. So making sure though, it's important that you make sure that you reconcile everything before you tick that final indicator. You'll see here when you go into that payroll run that you will tick that final event indicator within the pay run to indicate that it is the final run for the year. You can see here. And you could tick them for all employees if that's the way it is. There can be small corrections that may need to be made, and it's not as simple as the person going in now and amending a pay run. We need to do an update event to make sure that the year-to-date figure is updated to reflect the actual adjusted year-to-date figure. So you can do an update or a full file replacement in GovReports. So if the year-to-date information does not match with the payroll system, then you're going to make sure you submit an update event. And that way you put in the updated year-to-date figure so that it reflects the correct figure. You go to the client and you select the event and select the update event. It will create a copy of the pay event and place it into valid and draft for you to correct. And then you make those changes and save them. before submitting the update event. And you can see here that you'll tick that it's an update event, which indicates to the tax office that's changed. There's also a full file replacement where a file has been sent to the ATO in error, or it has significant corrupt data. And it changes the employer's current pay fund run figures that was previously lodged with a full file replacement. So you can see it's when the whole report will be pre-filled and allows to modify and re-lodge it. I'm going to go back now and we're going to look at how you can use the Practice Manager to set up the single touch payroll in your system. So we talked before very briefly at the beginning about how we can use Office Practice Manager and how we can create our default task templates, etc. So one of the things that I've done in here is I have, oops, got to sign back in. We have a series of, and I don't know why it's done that. Bear with me for a moment. There we go. We have a series of jobs and tasks that we've created. So in the My Tasks, you can see there are a series of jobs here in relation to the approving of timesheets. I've also got some templates that have been set up and some jobs. So if I go to the My Jobs for a moment, you can see here in the weekly payroll processing, if I go into my tasks, you can see here I've got the approval of the timesheets, I have the creating of the pay run. I've then put in the additional task, making sure, which I do anyway in mine, is to reconcile my wages to the general ledger, to make sure that everything has been picked up correctly. And then normally I would just go through and transmit my wages. That's my normal process. Now with my, my new STP requirements, I will need to go through and add some additional functionality in. It's just one extra step. And as I said, if you set this up in your system and you set up the templates correctly to begin with, it's a matter of these can be created very quickly and attached to multiple clients, creating the workflow for you very simply. So if I look at, I've got to remember where I put it now, isn't it awful? So suddenly my mind has gone blank for a minute. In my weekly wages here, I just want to double check whether that's the one I made the changes to. That's not the, yes it is, there it is. Okay, so in my weekly wages, in my templates here, the scheduled job, I can see now I've got my reconciliation, I've got my approving of the timesheet, I've got my pay runs, they're a bit back to front in that one. I need to go to my template. Apologies for that, it's just gone a bit tasks. Jobs, this one I want. I just want to double check if it's this one or the other one. There it is. Okay, so in here, if I'm going to create a recurring template from scratch for my single touch payroll, I need to work out first and foremost what the process is that is involved in my payroll. Do we have the section where I have to get timesheets approved? Do I have to have something approved before I can move to the next step? What is my process? So if you can write the process down before you get ready to set this up, it'll take up 90% of your time in working out what needs to be set up and how you can schedule it. So in this example, I have to verify the timesheets have been approved and have a look at the total hours worked for the period and double check whether there's any penalty rates that apply and make sure that's being picked up correctly. I will then create a new pay run for the relevant date, check and update the payment if it's necessary, verify that, and this one is where I'm actually importing the timesheets from a software package, so this is why it's written in this way. I'd verify that the hours have come across from the timesheets area in this process 0 correctly. I adjust any non-timesheet employees, pick up any leave adjustments for part-time, full-time employees, post the payroll, generate a payroll report, and generate an ABA file for bank import. Now, I would normally go through possibly now and amend this. So I'm going to go into this one here, and I'm going to edit this one, and I'm going to go to my checklist, and I'm just going to see if I can generate payroll, generate ABA. I'm going to go into here into my checklist, and I'm going to add to my checklist. I'm going to now generate the ABA file. Now I'm going to generate the payroll report first. Generate the payroll report. Generate the ABA file for, and I can do it down here as well, I don't have to click the edit, for bank import. Now I've moved those there, and I'm going to delete them out of here. Because now I'm going to perform this reconciliation before I actually, why didn't it come up? No, that's wonderful. Let's put it all the way up there. And I didn't want it up there. If I do it this way, it'll make sure it does it. Generate ABA file for bank import. Okay, that's better. So now in my process, I'm making sure that I reconcile everything to minimize any having to do any, much in the way of update events. If I can do this, then towards the end of the financial year, the final pay run event final event will be very minimal. It will be, reportable super checking that and reportable fringe benefits tax and any other minor adjustments. So this way I'm reconciling as I go along. It's part of my process that I do anyway. I reconcile every month, I reconcile every quarter. I make sure that it's all reconciled. So now I'm doing this reconciliation at this stage before I even send the ABA file to depending on the relationship you have with your client. It may be that you have permission to upload the files into their banking software, but they have to do the approval. Whatever the agreement you have, you may be sending the file to them and they upload. It's all going to be in your process here. So then we will send the ABA file and payroll report to the client, in this case, for processing at their bank. Once they have confirmed that they have sent it off, we'll email the pay slips. I'll update my Xero with the spend money transaction so my bank account reflects the current situation, or I could wait for the bank feed to come in, either way. And then we'll lodge the single touch payroll with the ATO, making sure that we have the client's authority beforehand to do so. So that begs into another one that we might actually do first, is what happens if you have clients that you have to get their authorization each time because they don't fall within the annual lodgement declaration ability. It may be that they have outstanding debts without a payment plan, or there might be something like that, and you've been made aware of that. And there's also going to be when at the end, when you have a termination pay or an event that is not an event that is not regular in nature, so termination pay or a final event or something like that, you are going to have to get authority as well. So in this case, I am lodging it on the same day that they are being paid. It has to be earlier than or on the same day they're paid. It can't be later than, and certainly not weeks later than. The people who are providing services where they go in quarterly to do the payroll and update that sort of thing, we have to start thinking a different way of doing it, and this is where we can use Office Practice Manager to help us streamline the process. So in here, I'm going to add another little step in here, and I'm going to go to my checklist, and I'm going to add to my checklist, obtain authority to lodge report to ATO. And this is because for some reason my client is not compliant, and I'm going to organize this in my checklist so that that appears first, and I can drag and drop these to rearrange things. And save that report there. So you can see now that I have set up my weekly payroll processing for this client, well, it'll be for this client in particular, or it could be for a number of clients, but in this case it's one client. And so now I have these tasks here that are changed for this run. Now, if I have scheduled jobs and I want to amend the tasks in here so that all future jobs will also come up with that information, then I can go to my scheduled jobs here. I can open it, go to my tasks, and in here I'm going to go through like I did before. I'm going to go to my checklist. I'm going to add into my checklist with this one it was obtain authorization for STP report lodgement. Go back down. Rearrange that, save, go into my create the pay run, and then I have the whole area here. You'll notice that is what I don't have in here is I don't have my reconcile in here in my scheduled jobs. So I'm going to go through and edit in here. And I'm going to add a task, and it's going to be reconcile wages. And I'm going to add my different things. in general ledger. Okay, I'm going to take this, I will rearrange it in a moment. No, don't put that there. And I said also when I did this, oh there it is, I started doing it before. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to edit this one. So now once I've done this, then I can rearrange it later on and do that sort of thing and make it better. Get rid of the additional ones that I'm taking out of here, and also this one out because I've got it in a different section now. So now with my jobs, with these ones, it means now that every future job will come up with this additional amendments put into it. So all that additional work has been done in one spot. So when it comes to the scheduling of your jobs, so I'm just going to save those changes. When it comes to the scheduling of your jobs, you'll notice that when you create a new job, and I'm going to go into the recurring job template and create a new one just to show you, you'll see down here you can assign it to your different staff members. And if you've connected it to Google Calendar, Tiana, I don't know if you're there, can you tell me whether or not we'll be able to link it with Office 365 calendars in the future at all?
I know for certain that August is scheduled for the, what is it? What's the next thing? Gosh, sorry, my mind's just gone blank.
TPA?
No, the calendar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the calendar at the moment we integrated for Google Calendar, and what's the other popular ones? Oh, gosh.
iCalendar.
Graph. Help me here. My mind just gone blank.
Google Calendar. Outlook.
We have
Sorry.
enabled Google Calendar. Yeah, Outlook and Google Calendar.
Outlook is scheduled for August to be released, but I think we're going to be a little bit later than that. So August, September, and Office 365 at the moment, not yet. We haven't got, I don't know what's the next popular ones, but my Outlook certainly is the next one.
Okay. All right. So once you go in here and you can, when you have your calendar popping up, it means that it will populate the calendar and these dates will start to appear. So it allows you to then schedule these jobs. So you can see that single touch payroll is not as scary as everyone makes it out to be. Yeah, it's a little bit more time consuming, especially if you've got weekly payrolls, because, you know, but the steps that you're going through and the steps that you set up when you use the practice manager to set up those processes, those tasks and the checklists, if you set them up to begin with, you're reconciling as you go along to minimize any disruption down the track. And remembering that the event update is the way that you're going to deal with changes. and getting people out of the habit of going back in and making changes after you've done the payroll. So it's probably the biggest impact will be on those people who only visit their clients quarterly, but the wages are done more frequently. Now we've got to have a method to deal with that, and scheduling and using the Office Practice Manager to schedule your tasks is a very easy way to do it. And the fact that you can create your tasks and jobs and then create them so that you can add them to multiple clients. So if I go in here and I open this task, you see I can attach it to multiple clients. So I can create my checklists and create multiple client checklists in the click of a button. Has that covered most of it, Tiana, that you wanted me to cover tonight?
I think so. I think it's I think we cover a lot of things. Any questions from the audience that you want us to cover, or you're not too sure of? We've got a couple of questions that already have gone through already, Ali. But
yep.
I'll go through. If there's no more questions coming in, I'll just just go through some of the questions that we have here. I answer most of them, but just in case if anyone else got any other questions, and then we can come back and revisit these. Most of the questions that we got so far more into STP related and not so much on the actual process of the Office Practice Manager, Ali. So which is
That's
a good
right.
thing, I believe. Yep, we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes and see if anyone else got any questions. Okay, so while we're waiting for the questions to come through, I'll just go through some of the questions that we got earlier. And the first questions, can you attach documents like checklists from the ICB to a task? You certainly can, and I think, yeah.
Absolutely. Ali? Yeah. So when you are doing your jobs, like you've got your tasks there, and you've created your job. So when you are in your job, so let's go to my jobs to show you. See this weekly payroll processing here? You can do your attachments here. And in here, you can add in an attachment and you can tell it where the attachment is. It might be a copy of the report. Obviously in this one, because it's a trial one, it's disabled in this case, but normally I would have it and tell it when I just choose this one, even if it's on my drive, and I pick it up and I attach my document and my working papers to my jobs as part of my process. The authorization that I have, it might be that if it's one of those ones that you unfortunately have to get authorization every single payroll, then you might want to attach the authorization there just to show that you've got that attached. But if I'm not sure, I know we have engagement letters in GovReports. It would be, I don't know if you've looked at whether or not there are STP authorization engagement letters that you can set up. But that would be something that, maybe something to think of in the future. But I have a template that I use, and I will send it off electronically for signature for my clients. Most of my clients will fall within that ability to fill in an annual declaration, with the only thing with that to remember is that if there are events, they're not the same in their nature. So if it's not like a normal pay run, if it's a termination pay or it's an ETP or something like that, you will have to get separate authority for those pay events when you lodge them. And so the attachments is very, very easy to do.
Yep, I think also and I think I answer Anne-Marie incorrectly. If I'm not if this is not the correct, this is not what you expected, I think what you mean is to have the checklist inbuilt into the system. Yes, we looked at that previously and we discussed with RCB, but unfortunately because they want, this is part of their IP, so if you can incorporate that into the process, into the task, part of the task, and the checklist, so that in your own account. But for us to publicly list it, it's we need to get an approval from ICB.
Yep, fair enough.
Okay, so the next questions that I've got. Now we do have webinars on SDP, related to SDP and how you lodge for your clients, etc. More in details if you wish to do that. It's on the 3rd of July, and or the earlier webinars that we have earlier, which you can get access to from our website. Regarding questions earlier from Melanie, and regarding reporting on or before payment date, what do we do in the case of closely held employees or entities?
So
I've already answered that.
Yeah, closely held have a different sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So I did answer this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ali. And according to the ICB and also the ATO that I know of, is that it is exceptional for closely held. They will have until next year to comply with SDP, but in the meantime, they can opt in and report as they wish or quarterly, and that lodgement due date is along with the BAS.
That's my understanding as well. 2020 is the year that closely held are required to opt in, so yeah, and what you were saying also, once they opt in, there is that quarterly basis as a minimum. There's no once a year, once the accounts have been worked out and you've liaised with the accountant or tax agent to work out what their gross wage is going to be for the year. You can't do that anymore. It has to be, if once they're into STP reporting, it has to be for those closely held members at a quarterly at a minimum.
Okay. The next questions that I had was from Jean. It said the year-to-date figures to end of the payroll event. I thought that you enter the year-to-date figures before the payroll event, and then payroll event would be added to that to get total year-to-date amount. Is that not correct?
When I lodge my reports, I do it through Xero, so it's sort of automated. It's the year-to-date number that I report each week. I don't. It's picking up on that year-to-date. Their software is doing something in the background. That's my understanding.
Okay. Well, because GovReport has only payroll event year-to-date figures, no separate pay run, so it would not be applicable here. However, like Ali said, other application will be, different, and you need to check with the software. Okay. Okay, the next questions that I've got from Anne Marie is that it means that it would take longer to set up jobs. Is that right, Ali?
Look, if you're not using Office Practice Manager right now, it just takes a little while to set the jobs up. But my idea is, and okay, I like a piece of pen and paper sometimes, is you are probably doing the payroll now in your head because you're used to doing it. You know the process off by heart. All you need to do is write that down in order on a piece of paper, group it into tasks, put little checklists under it, and then go in and set up those jobs. Now, it doesn't take as long as you think. you know, the very first time, I don't know how many times I made mistakes and deleted and re-entered things the very first time until I suddenly thought, why don't I write it down first and then do it? So it takes a little while just to do it. But as I said, you already have a payroll process, I would think. The additional step is just making sure that the payroll report is going to marry to the report that you're going to send to the tax office, and reconciling your wages to make sure that they all marry okay before you send it off and give them the payments. You know, make sure that before you transmit the batch to the bank, that you've reconciled those wages first, that you're happy that the figures are correct, that the ABA file is going to be okay, and then the next step is just lodging to the ATO. For me, in my payroll software, it takes me no more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes more at the most. But in terms of setting it up in Office Practice Manager, it's just once you set one up, you can clone it and edit the cloned version. So I have a version for MYOB, I have a version for Xero, I have a version for QuickBooks Online. All I did was take the one version which had all the steps involved. You know, I may have had specific reports, but that's fine, I can edit those. But I just cloned it and then just edited what I want into the next one, and then cloned that and did the same again. So that way it didn't take me long, it just took me a longer time to set up the first one correctly, and then the subsequent ones were easy. I hope that answers it.
I think so. Okay, another question that I got from Mohan, and I think Raj attempted to answer this, is that the questions is, one of my clients process payroll on a weekly basis for family members. Can we do the STP reporting to the ATO on a quarterly basis? Absolutely, but it has to be from a BAS or tax agent. With the deferral applied to the notifying the ATO that this is a closely
has to be notified to the ATO in advance that they are, notify them once you know that it's close members, and therefore they have a deferral, and that deferral will be in place until the next, and they can do their quarterly rather than weekly.
Okay. Questions from Shirley. What about year-to-date risk?
Year-to-date risk. So depending on which payroll package you're using, if you're using most of the payroll packages, the risk should be being picked up normally, but sometimes you have that, just pre-June, that lump sum everyone wants to get in and make sure they've picked up the maximum threshold and all the rest of it. So with that, you will have you'll go through and reconcile the payroll and do everything you need to do, and when you have that last one, you will put it through a payroll so that it picks up that risk amount if you're doing it through the payroll, and then when you do that payroll and report on it, then when you do your final event, it should already be in there for you. Tiana, I'd have to hand to you about with the, you had that option showing there how you could complete the risk and reportable fringe benefits in GovReports.
Yeah, with risk year to date, it can be, as I think Raj answers Shirley as well there, is that it can be reported on the pay run, or it can be the last pay run of the financial year. And I think that's also clarified by the ICB at the recent workshops as well.
That is. I mean, the thing that most people, software houses are saying is try to do any adjustments through a pay run. So then the year-to-date, when you're ready to do that year-to-date figure and it's final, it is final because you've already done the adjustments. So reconciling, you always reconcile that final one anyway. When we're doing our last payment summaries this year, we'll be reconciling the wages to make sure it's all good before the payment summaries are issued. It's really no different to single touch payroll. You will reconcile and make sure everything is all above board before you click that final event to make sure everything's been picked up. But the easiest way to do it, because you can't go back and change pay runs, is to actually do another pay event or a pay run in the software that picks up that adjustment.
Okay, it looks like that's all the questions that we have at this stage. If any more questions, let us know. Okay, it looks like that's about it. If you have any further questions post this webinar, please send the question through to us or give us a call after the sessions, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. This session has been recorded, so you can revisit at your convenience if you feel you missed something. Yeah, thank you. Thanks again, Ali.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
I hope
everyone.
that's provided some insight for you and helped you on how to help set up your jobs and schedule them in Office Practice Manager.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye. So I will say hi to the cat, Melanie. All right. Stop sharing.
So